it's Coach Tori, and this is Raising Runners. We talk running, fitness, mental health, and so many more topics. As the founder of a youth running program, I approach all of our conversations with our youth athletes in mind and kind of have a focus around those things. But as you will see, we are finding that all of these topics relate to runners and people who like to move and do fitness or anything like that. Relates to everybody. Check it out. Hey, it's Coach Tori, and in today's episode, I am actually joined by two guests, Nancy and Elizabeth Jorgensen. They are authors of a book about Gwen Jorgensen, who is daughter and sister of the authors. The book is called Gwen Jorgensen USA's First Gold Medal Triathlete. Hopefully I got that right. There was a long... Yes, first Olympic gold medal triathlete. Yes. So we talk about their book. We talk about writing their book. We talk about Gwen and just her as an athlete and a person. Great conversation. Also great book. You'll hear me talk about how much I really liked the book. But it follows Gwen's journey from being a swimmer to a swimmer and a runner to back to a swimmer and a runner, and then adding the bike in, and kind of how she got to the Olympics. There are some tips in there about different things with like goal setting and triathlons and other kinds of really cool tips. And then also just like being acknowledged by Gwen. She writes to the reader, she writes to herself. So lots of really cool things in the book. I think it's great for like all audiences, so I definitely would check that out. I love a good sports story that follows someone from being an early athlete into them being an athlete now, being able to see just like how they were shaped as a person. And this is definitely a story like that. So there's just so many elements about it that I really like. You don't have to be a sports person, I don't think, to be into this as well. Yeah, I think it really just speaks to the masses, and I loved getting to chat with them about their book and kind of about their experiences that led them to write the book. So check it out. Okay, so I guess to start, do you guys just want to tell everybody who you are, just like a quick little intro?
Yeah, I am Elizabeth Jorgensen, and I am a high school English teacher and a writer, and I am also Nancy Jorgensen's daughter.
And I am Nancy Jorgensen, Elizabeth's mom and Gwen Jorgensen's mom. I am a retired choral music educator, and Elizabeth and I actually taught in the same building for about 10 years. So yeah, we're used to working on projects together.
Well, and that was actually going to be one of my questions was like, it seems kind of like your family has always been a team. Is that like actually how things have been going? You guys work together on a lot of different things, or like, how did this all kind of come about?
I think when the girls were littler, we were just a typical Wisconsin family. We had no idea that anybody was going to be an Olympian in our family. And I think the roles were more defined as far as parent and kid. But I think I was really fortunate that once the girls grew up and became adults, that our relationship became more one of equals and friends, and just more than mother-daughter. We became co-editors, co-writers, and it's been really fun.
I did always view us as a team, though. I think that, we had different roles and everyone was expected to sort of play their role and contribute to the team. I'm even thinking of, when Gwen would go to state meets when she was in middle or high school, I would decorate the car and I would say, well, we got to have matching outfits, or, putting things together to get my little team to cheer together for Gwen. But yeah, then, Gwen, knowing that we were writing partners and that mom and I work together, she came to us and she said, you know, if you guys are going to do another project about me, I would really like it to be for young people, for middle grade or young adults, so that they can learn from her story, maybe even see a bit of themselves in that. She was really the driving force behind our latest project.
Yeah. So, and of course, this is me like already being scattery. I don't usually do interviews in the middle of the day because of this specific reason. My brain is just like all over the place. But yeah, so we're here to talk about your book. I guess, can you give just like a quick little, you kind of already introed it, but like what the book is about and who I guess it's for?
It's, as Elizabeth said, it's for young people, middle grade through young adult, although plenty of adults have read it and say that they like it as well. And it, you know, it's a biography about a short term in Gwen's life. And we use two different timelines. One is the Olympic timeline. So it starts about 7 days before the Olympics, and you follow Gwen's journey from landing in Rio, or actually right before she takes off on the plane for Rio, through the final race, the final minutes of the race. And then interspersed in there are stories that relate to the race and kind of give you a background into what Gwen was doing in her childhood or high school years or college years that led up to this Olympic race.
It's so funny. So I was reading it and I didn't have the idea in my head that this was for like young people and young adults, but I think that's often the kind of books that I like. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is so the kind of book I would read, like, you know, easy to read through. Love that there's like the breakup of like, there's tips and there's different things involved and, you know, the timeline and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I really do have like the young adult brain when it comes to reading.
But
So
that's what we're
really
hearing over and over, that although we intended it for that audience, that adults are enjoying it too. And, you know, how special would it be if you could share that with your kids or the young people in your life, or just enjoy it yourself? It's a quick read. One of my friends said her dad picked it up and read it in like 1 or 2 sittings and just loved it. And so it's encouraging for us to hear that all sorts of people are enjoying it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And since like I do work with kids, but then also adults, it's like, it's nice to have more resources that like span like that population, because it's sometimes hard to find stuff that like will relate to adults and kids and everybody kind of in between. Okay, so again, we've talked about Gwen a little bit. She's been referenced. Can you tell us just like who Gwen is since she's not here? I'm sure that's really hard to just like summarize her, right?
Right. Well, right now, she is an athlete trying to make a comeback in triathlon, and she's trying to qualify for the Paris Olympics. But, you know, as her mom, I think I said before, she was just a regular kid in Wisconsin who loved to swim and was kind of obsessive about swimming. She always knew her mind. She knew what she wanted to do. And when she found something she loved, she just insisted on pursuing it. She became a pretty good swimmer, you know, through her high school years, never really went to national meets or, you know, didn't qualify for the Olympics, and did not get a scholarship at the University of Wisconsin, swam there a little bit and then transitioned to running, and then transitioned to triathlon. USA Triathlon noticed her. They had a recruitment program where they looked at college athletes and targeted her as someone who is a swimmer and a runner, and said, we could teach you the bike. We think you should be a triathlon or a triathlete. And Gwen resisted at first. She said, you know, I've got this full-time job. I'm an accountant now, and I don't know how to ride a bike. And they just, you know, they kept saying, yeah, but, you know, you have a talent. And that she's always been kind of open to discovering some new talent that she has. And so she pursued that and became an Olympian by this all happened around 2009, 2010. By 2012, she qualified for the Olympics and got a flat tire in the race. And immediately after that race said, I think I really could do this. If I hadn't had a flat tire, I think I could have been a real contender. And so set out the 2016 Olympics as her goal. to win gold. And she did it.
And then after that, she felt like she had, reached her goal. She reached that potential and wanted to try something new. So said she was going to try out the marathon, tried that for a while, ended up on the track at the Olympic trials for Tokyo, didn't qualify for it, but still did really well on the track. And oh yeah, she had 2 babies. So she's a 2-time mother, just gave birth, like 4 months ago now. And so is trying to make her comeback in triathlon, going back to that because of the relay. She never got an opportunity to do the relay at the Olympics, and she loves that team atmosphere. And so she's hoping to be on the US triathlon mixed team relay in Paris in 2024.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So, a couple of things with that. It's so funny. So I'm a runner, so I know running, and I, know triathlons, but not a whole lot. But I don't know if it was the way the internet like cyber stalks you now or whatever, but I started seeing like all kinds of articles about Gwen as I'm like preparing for our interview. And I saw that she just did a race. So then while I was reading the book, I thought there was an interesting quote. I don't even remember what it was from, but Patrick, her husband, had said something about like their life together. And, after Rio, she's probably only has about like 4 more years, or no, before Rio, she probably only has like 4 more years left in her career or something along those lines. Right. And I noted that because I was like, this has definitely been like 6 years, I think, from when that happened. So it's just so funny how that stuff goes.
Well, and we're seeing so many athletes competing and PRing. I'm thinking even on the track space, how many women are doing well into their late 30s?
Oh my gosh, it's crazy now that like we've all kind of figured out, like we had this idea of, younger people were the ones who were, in their prime, but it's like, no, we are getting a whole different view now with all these people making these comebacks and doing things. And Gwen, like after having 2 kids, like that's just a whole different element of it, which I think is so awesome too, that it looked like she was able to recognize that feat even before she had kids, of like her other competitors, of like, you're also a mom and you're doing this. Because I'm not familiar really, I know triathlons a little bit, but the team, can you guys share a little bit about what she's trying to do now? Like, what is that, the relay kind of thing? What does that all entail?
Yeah, the relay has gone through some changes. Basically, what it is a 4-person mixed team, and
so male, female, male,
right, female. Right. And each one of those competitors does a mini triathlon, which takes maybe 20 minutes. So they do, I think it's about a 400-yard swim, and then a short bike, and then a short, I think about a mile run. So the first one is a male, and they do that quick triathlon, tag off to the female who does it, does their own triathlon. And then, so it's male, female, male, female. It takes over an hour for those 4 competitors to complete the relay. It's really fast. And I think people like it because they call it fast and furious, and it is.
And you're used to in track and field seeing the baton being passed, and they don't do that. They just high five each other. And
wow.
Yeah. And so it's really cool to see, the male come in and then high five the woman, and then the woman sprints and then does this like flying leap dive into the water. And then the next person is off. It's exciting, and you never know what's going to happen. You go into that race thinking which team is strongest, and never comes out the way that you anticipate it.
Relays are so like fun to watch that way, right? Because it's just, you get that back and forth, and like you don't really know what the third person's like on this team, or the fourth, and it is so exciting. I'll have to check that out and watch that though, because that really does sound super cool to watch.
The strategy too, she was in this one on Sunday that we watched, and we weren't sure how they were going to place the individual competitors. Well, it seemed like they ended up putting the fastest ones first, just to get that lead. But you never know. And then I think maybe that changes when one team says, well, no, we're going to put our fastest person, in the final position. I don't know, people, I suppose, could switch their own up then too.
Yeah. So I imagine you guys are very
like obviously into sports because of, you know, Gwen and getting into that stuff. But Elizabeth, I know you ran in school as well, but you know, what's the sports background? Is it kind of just like we all fell into, you know, athletics, running, or is it like been a thing that you've always done?
My parents growing up expected us to do a musical instrument and a sport year round. And so I was always playing basketball. And then I, you know, to make my year round sport continue, I also picked up cross country and track and field. And I was there for the social aspect of running. I loved the water breaks. I loved when our coach said, if you make it to the out and back point, I'll pick you up and give you a ride back. You know, I wasn't very, I struggle with the hurt part of competing at that level. Like you really have to be able to suffer. And I struggle to get my mind, to get my body there. But while I was in high school on the track and field and the cross country team, my coach saw Gwen doing some dry land exercises for swimming. And he just said, you know, your sister, she's a runner. And I was like, no, my sister's a swimmer. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, no, she's a runner. He saw this just innate talent and ability that Gwen had, like her cadence and her form. He just saw that she was a runner. And he pursued her and said, you know, I would love to have you on my track and field team. He came to the house a couple of times and really made a hard push for, you know, you've got this talent. And Gwen ended up listening to him and joining the track and field team with me and had some real instant success there on relays and individual events. She went to state as a freshman in the, I think it was the Open 800. And so, you know, she just, that I think was her first taste of what she could do on the track. And I've always been her biggest fan. That's more my athletic role, is I'm a fan.
And I, you know, I don't call myself an athlete. And I've been thinking about all this lately because I graduated from high school when Title IX passed. And so there weren't the opportunities for me when I was in high school. And, you know, the girls my age did cheerleading, and I was never cool enough to be a cheerleader. So I took piano lessons and spent a lot of time with music. But I know the value of sports. And so, like Elizabeth said, when the kids were growing up, we wanted them to do sports. And, you know, we insisted that they find something to do. Of course, as a musician, I also thought that was important and insisted they do that right alongside.
That's so awesome too. And that's a lot of what, when like coaches of younger athletes, like things we talk about is like how to prevent burnout and, you know, having just the opportunity to do sports instead of being pushed into sports, but also doing other things and having other things you value is like a huge part of that. So it sounds like that was kind of like a really great formula for, you know, liking sports, doing track and, you know, getting into the social side if you wanted to, but for like Gwen, like really, it sounded like a lot of her motivation was intrinsic and that she just was naturally competitive. As I was reading it, I was wondering, and, you know, I'm sure she could probably answer differently or maybe similar to how you guys view it, but I'm wondering, as like someone who I think I identify as competitive too, like I always would gravitate towards the things that I am best at. And I don't like doing things that I'm not so great at. And not to say that she wasn't so great at swimming, but she had that knowledge that like I am exceptional at track, but she always was gravitating towards swimming. What do you think that was? Like, was it just she loved the water? Did she like the challenge? You know, kind of what would push her to do that? Because I would just in my head think you would just go to whatever you're best at.
You know, she did really like the water, and she'll say that she liked the quiet part of it where she could just put her head down and stare at the lane lines at the bottom of the pool and kind of get away from the world and whatever else might have been bothering her. But she was good enough that she did have that success. And, you know, she was MVP of her high school swim team all 4 years. And she was offered scholarships to colleges, just not the top ones that she wanted. And so there was always that seed of, you know, I'm the best in my city and I'm the best maybe at this certain race. But then she just never made that leap to I'm the best in all of Wisconsin or all of the country. And so I think that really did provide a lot of it, that hope was always hanging out there, that if with more work, I can get better, with more time, I can get better, with more coaching, I can reach that that goal. And so the combination of really liking the sport and having enough hope that she's going to be great kept her going there.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. With that, I also was remembering as I'm reading, it sounds like her goal for the longest time since being a kid was to be an Olympian, right? So to me, that's like an outcome goal, right? But so much through the book, it's talked about the process goal, focusing on the process. Can you talk a little bit about, I know like I think closer to the end, it, kind of explains like how to do a process goal, but can you talk a little bit about like the process goal and then how Gwen also ultimately did have that goal of what she wanted to achieve?
That's part of the reason why she wanted the book, that when she was little, she focused on outcomes. And I think it was really Jamie Turner, her triathlon coach, that helped her focus on process, identify the processes that she could control that would lead her ultimately, of course, to her best outcomes. But that if you focus on the process, you don't have to worry about the outcomes because you did everything you could. You put in all of those days. And so, that is so much of why the book focuses on the process. We hope that kids can see, they can identify what a process would look like for them in maybe their sport, but it doesn't have to be, right? Like you could take a process and apply it to music or apply it to, I want to be a chef or a teacher or whatever that is.
I think also along with that, Gwen was always willing to kind of shift focus. And when her big outcome goal maybe didn't look as achievable, she would shift from swimming, say, to track, where that big outcome goal looked a little more possible, and then develop new process goals. And then when track, didn't work out in college and triathlon appeared on the horizon, she was willing to shift again. And so those big outcome goals are movable, and she was willing to move them.
And not being afraid to put those out there. I mean, when she transitioned to marathon, she said to the world, I want to win the gold medal in the marathon. And then to have to not achieve it, what do you do then? How do you face the people on social media or yourself or your family or whomever?
Yeah, no, and that is a huge thing that I think a lot of people are afraid to say now, because especially like in the world of social media where everyone's now going to almost hold you accountable, like, but you said you were going to do this, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it must take a lot of confidence in yourself, but also like knowing why you're doing something, I would imagine, to be able to do all that.
It's okay if they change, right? I didn't achieve the gold medal in the marathon, but here's what's next for me. I'm making a shift.
And I think that was part of the message for young people too, that, you can have a big dream and you can set big ambitions and go for them. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. You'll survive and you'll come up with something new to pursue, and that it's all right for young girls to not be perfect all the time.
Right. Even her return to triathlon this time, she said she hopes she's being a model for her son, that she's going to go out there and she's not going to be perfect. She's not even going to be close to perfect, but she's still out there trying.
Well, and like as I was reading articles about, her making a comeback too, I did read a few things about like wanting to be, a great role model for her son. And I like relate to that so much. My son is turning 2 in April. And I feel like I'm always just trying to be like, you say like a better person and all that stuff, but it's like thinking of things like, as I was reading this too, I'm like, wow, I know I'm definitely someone who is afraid to have these big goals, tell people, and then fail because it's like, I don't know what to do now. You know what I mean? So it is so nice to read about people who do those things, can show you how that is okay. The end of the world didn't happen and I moved on to something and I'm still a great role model. I'm still inspiring people. So I really love that. No, it is so cool. And you guys seem like, and I think we talked about like the team, you guys love being cheerleaders kind of thing. I think sometimes that is even a hard role of being supportive to someone, being a cheerleader, wanting their goals for them too. But then you also have to just not make it about you or be like, how do you do that? How can you be, great cheerleaders for other people? Because I think a lot of the audience too, not only are, a lot of them runners and people into fitness and stuff, but are parents of kids, parents, coaches, all those kinds of things where like we are trying to be a great cheerleader for someone.
I
We
think, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I don't worry about the outcome. Of course, I want her to do really well, but whatever happens, I'm cheering. Like, and if it's a really disappointing, sad day, I'm gonna be there with encouraging words, and I'm gonna try to make her laugh or get her favorite food, or something that I know will brighten her day. And then when it does go well, oh man, right, we're really gonna party then. But it's sometimes hard for me because I get so nervous because I'm not in control. I'm thinking of the day of the Olympics in Rio. I saw Patrick moments before the race was to begin, and I was just a bottle of nerves. I couldn't even contain myself. I was like shaking, and I'm like, I don't even know how you guys are doing this. And Patrick looked at me calmly, and he's like, all she's got to have is an average day. All today has to be is average. And I was like, wait, what? No, 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 no. She has to have a phenomenal. And when you're not in control, it's really hard to like not be nervous because there's nothing you can do about it. And so I think I take that energy and I channel it in cheers and outfits and just it's the only way I know how to get rid of some of that anxiety.
And I think what I try to do is just trust that Gwen knows what she needs and, focus on her. And so on race day, sometimes she'll say, or I'll just ask her, what do you need from me? And she might say, well, I really need a gallon of water. Could you go to the store and get that? Or I'm all out of bananas. That would just really help me. Then I'd have my breakfast complete if I had those bananas. And I guess just making it more about her and what she needs to do instead of about the parents or the family or what we need on that day. Because we don't really need anything. We just need to be there and support the athlete.
And I think whatever she says to us, we just do. Like even some days she'll say, I just need to be alone. And then we say, no problem, you got it. Like just listening and trusting. And Gwen is really good at telling us what she needs. And so then we just accept it as neutral data and then we do it and we move on.
Yeah, it sounds simple, right?
Well, we've been doing it for a few years, but I think also our family dynamic has, always been that. And we also know, when Gwen was little and she had a terrible race, we learned what not to do from, maybe making some mistakes or saying, well, Gwen, and, what I always say is if you only would have gone a little faster, you would have won.
And I hear about families, just kind of Gwen tells me about different athletes that she runs into and families who put so much pressure on athletes, either to do more, to be better. If they're going to do this, they better just, up the performance level, or to come home. And, parents who say to their children, you should have a full-time job by now, or you shouldn't be doing this. And I think we just try to respect everybody's knowledge of themselves. And if you think this is where you need to be at this point in your life, then we're behind you and we'll go and get those bananas or water, or if you need help with something else, we'll just help you, and trust that the athlete knows themselves and what they need.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite race that you've ever watched? Is it Rio that was a favorite, or are there others?
My favorite was 2011 in London, because it was Gwen's first international race. And she told us, I'm going to go to Europe and race, and maybe you should come and see me. And I thought, well, it's probably the only time I'll get to Europe and the only time she'll probably race there, And so we went there with no expectations. She was the 5th person on a 5-woman team. And she was really just doing it for experience. And so there was no pressure. I was so naive. I didn't know that people crashed on the bike and got hurt. I didn't know any of that. And so I was relaxed and just enjoying the race. And then she comes in second and qualifies for the Olympics in 2012. And it was like all the best things that happened. and none of the pressure or fears. It was just this best combination. And then after that,
And wasn't it your birthday too?
it was my birthday, right? It was August 6th of 2011. And then after that, I started to learn more about crashes, and the pressure started to add on because she started stringing together a bunch of wins, and people started expecting wins, and just, yeah. But that was my favorite.
I really liked that San Diego race. She was the first woman to win that race. And then it was on home soil at the birthplace of triathlon. We had some family there. That was fun. I also really liked the Chicago race. We had a huge just group of people that came from, all across the country and met down there in Chicago. And it's just fun when you're surrounded by a ton of people. And then Chicago, of course, there was like a big Red Bull party afterward that we all went to. And it was very, very fun. Oh, she came from behind too. Wasn't she back like 60 some seconds? And then, every lap it got more and more exciting because she was closer and closer and closer. And then of course she finally won. So.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. Do you have anything else as we're wrapping up? Just anything real quick about the book people should know if they are interested in checking it out or unsure if it's a book for them?
We have an educator guide that you can get free. So if a teacher or a coach or even a parent wanted to work through the book with a young person, they should definitely check that out. It's in the show notes. You can also email us or contact us on social media and we can help direct you to that. In addition, we're offering some author talks. So if there's a team that would want to ask us some questions about writing or about the process, or we can work them through some exercises, and we're available for that as well.
Awesome. No, that is so cool and super helpful. I didn't actually know that part. And so then the book is just called Gwen Jorgensen, right?
It's called, there's a subtitle, Gwen Jorgensen, USA's first Olympic gold medal triathlete. And I'd also like to just mention too, that in the book, Gwen writes letters to herself, but also to the reader. And she encourages any readers who would like to contact her to do that. Just, use her, DM her in her social media. She's on Instagram, and she's got a YouTube channel, and it's all just Gwen Jorgensen at whatever outlet.
Yes, I was going to say, I forgot that I wanted to bring up that there were notes from her. I think I was even like some handwritten stuff in there along with pictures. So it just feels super relatable as well.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. It's wonderful to hear.
Yeah. Can you tell? Like, I really like the book. And it's so nice when I get to do these because I never make the time to read anymore as much as I want to. So I'm like, whenever a book comes up, I'm like, oh, actually I have to sit down and read this. I'm like, oh, it's so nice. And it's nice to have great books to read. Right. Thank you so much for taking the time and talking about your book. I know it's like the middle of the day. So I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us about all of this.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having us on.
It's been fun.
I just want to thank the Jorgensens again for taking the time to talk with me about their book and their lives. Always appreciate people who can find some time to share their stories because I know everyone is super busy. So it's always nice to be able to get to actually talk with people about really cool things that they've done. As someone who's not a reader currently, I don't get exposed to too many books. So I'm so glad I got to have this opportunity to find a book that definitely speaks to me on a lot of levels, and I feel like I can share with a lot of different people in my community. So love everything about that. And the links to find the book will be in the notes, so you will be able to find it there. I'd say definitely check it out. Also, make sure you check out Gwen, who's currently been doing all kinds of cool things in the racing world. So check out her journey, get to follow along with what she's doing in her comeback season, if you want to call it that. But yeah, so I just want to thank them again for taking the time to talk with me. Next week, we will be back to chatting about optimizing our running for people who are super busy. We'll be talking about that for the next couple of weeks. Also hoping to have another video episode of some training chat, and also At some point interspersed between getting back on track with our mini series, we will have an episode on flow state, because I feel like that has been something that I've been talking about a lot with athletes that I work with. So just a couple things to look forward to in the future. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, all the things that you can do for a podcast that you enjoy listening to. Make sure you check out social media, our website, any of those things. If you have questions, comments, interview requests, feel free to email me at marikeyrunclub@gmail.com. I just want to thank the Jorgensens again for taking the time to talk with me about their book and their lives. Always appreciate people who can find some time to share their stories, because I know everyone is super busy. So it's always nice to be able to get to actually talk with people about really cool things that they've done. As someone who's not a reader currently, I don't get exposed to too many books. So I'm so glad I got to have this opportunity to find a book that definitely speaks to me on a lot of levels, and I feel like I can share with a lot of different people in my community. So love everything about that. And the links to find the book will be in the notes, so you will be able to find it there. I'd say definitely check it out. Also, make sure you check out Gwen, who's currently been doing all kinds of cool things in the racing world. So check out her journey, get to follow along with what she's doing in her comeback season, if you want to call it that. But yeah, so I just want to thank them again for taking the time to talk with me. Next week, we will be back to chatting about optimizing our running for people who are super busy. We'll be talking about that for the next couple of weeks. Also hoping to have another video episode of some training chat, and also at some point interspersed between getting back on track with our mini series, we will have an episode on flow state, because I feel like that has been something that I've been talking about a lot with athletes that I work with. So just a couple things to look forward to in the future.